How many of you have ever had an idea that you loved and were super passionate about until you asked somebody else about it and they said, that's a bad idea? Go ahead, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you ever had a good idea that you were told was a bad idea. Well, it's a bad idea until it isn't. I've had a lot of ideas I've been told were awful until I tried them and experienced success. And then everybody always says, oh, I knew that would be a good idea. Today, I'm going to talk to you about what I believe is essential to overcoming obstacles and being a success, and that is resilience. Growing up, I was the youngest of 5, and I heard many times, why can't you be like the other 4 kids? That was painful until it wasn't. As a teenager, I loved to talk on the phone, but we only had one phone. 5 children, 2 parents. That's 7 people all vying for time on that one phone. And remember, I was the youngest, so not in line as a priority user. Fast forward to the early 80s, and I heard about an exciting idea for a portable phone that you could carry around. And it only weighed 20 pounds. Only 20 pounds. Well, I happened to know someone who worked in this exciting new industry, and I managed to wrangle my way in selling these portable phones. When I first went home and told my dad my idea, he said, that's great, honey, but nobody's going to carry a phone. But I followed my intuition and not only made an extraordinary amount of money that summer, I received a free portable phone. A free phone. Free. How many of you have a portable phone today? I trusted my gut even when I was repeatedly told it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea until it isn't. Well, after working in various sales jobs, an opportunity to be an early adopter in the internet world presented itself to me. It's hard to imagine now, but the internet was just becoming a thing. People actually felt sure there would never be a time where everybody would have access to a computer. Once again, I followed my gut, even though I was told it's a bad idea. I was asked to be the director of sales for NetZero, which is an internet service provider, and I was told, no one is going to buy advertising for online stuff. For real. How many of you have purchased something on Amazon? Ever? Well, once again, I followed my gut, even when I was repeatedly told, no one's going to buy that, it's a bad idea, until it isn't. Once again, I followed my gut, and it was an amazing career, and one that I worked at 24/7. The stories from back in the day are all true. I took the red eye back from west to east. I went straight to my office sometimes. I even slept in my office sometimes. It was really fun. I even took NetZero public while I was working there. That was really cool. Everything was going along great. But then I hit a huge detour. My older sister, who I adored, was killed in a tragic accident. It's hard to talk about even now because it ripped me to my core, so I won't go into great detail. But suffice it to say, I needed a lot of therapy and God's help to finally get up and function again. This detour, this experience, took an extraordinary amount of resilience. But I was committed to use it to better myself in any way that I could. And it forced me to take stock. There had to be more to life than this, right? Well, I allowed myself the freedom to dream about what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. I didn't want to waste my one life. And after all, I had just learned firsthand it is precious, and it can change in an instant. I allowed myself to dream, and one day, around that time, I marched myself into the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I surprised myself, and everyone I knew, I got in. Well, I quit my job and considered being over the hill for an actress already. Of course, I was told, that's a really, really bad idea. You'll have no money and no security. That's a really bad idea. I also heard many times, No one would quit a super successful job in your 30s to crawl around on stage and act like a cat. But that's exactly what I did, and it gave me freedom, and it allowed me to heal. If I had asked people if I should audition to get into that school, they would have told me I was crazy. But it was exactly what was right for my life at that time. I did not succeed in acting back then, but hey, entrepreneurs experience an average of 4 failures before a success. Resilience is what separates the quitters from those that are successful. I started dreaming a lot and writing down my dreams. I dreamed 2 very interesting, important, and prophetic dreams. On one dream, I was soaring through the air on a red jet with other women. In the second dream, I stole a diamond, and one by one, everyone I knew came into that dream and told me I had ruined my life. Well, that upset me, and I wanted to know what that dream meant, so I went to a dream interpreter, and she told me what that dream clearly meant, that I needed to steal my own diamond, or in other words, live my life for me and not for others' approval, and that's exactly what I went on to do. Throughout my life, I've always written down things I've wanted and my goals. It's a common fact that writing down your goals significantly increases the chance of achieving them. But it wasn't until recently that I found out about your brain's reticular activating system. I was fascinated to know that there's a part of our brain that actually conspires to help us focus and achieve our goals. An example of this would be if your friend tells you that he's going to buy a purple Jeep and you'd never seen one before, but now all of a sudden on the highway, all you see are purple Jeeps. That's your brain's reticular activating system kicking into high gear to help you focus on some things while ignoring others. Well, after these 2 dreams, I wrote down that I wanted a job involving sales and jets for a possible future. As a woman, all I had been told I could do in aviation was be a flight attendant. I was a flight attendant for 1 year, a job I landed on a dare after college. And I loved being in the air, and I loved the planes and the jets, but I hated that job. I mean, back then, at 22 years of age, who could imagine that selling jets could be in my future? It was still a very unique thing for a woman to do, or anyone for that matter. But I remember taking the newspapers out of the trash around this time because, remember, I quit my job and I wasn't a good actress. So I had no money, no job, and I was dumpster diving newspapers. And all of a sudden, I kept seeing ads for jets in the paper. Jets were in the paper, jets were on billboards, jets were flying over my head. I became obsessed, and my brain's reticular activating system was kicking into high gear. Jets seemed to be everywhere. I had an idea that I wrote down. Maybe I could book jets that other people owned. You guessed it, this time people just looked at me like I was completely crazy. I mean, to their defense, I was broke, so not a likely candidate for success in the jet world. And I remember my dad telling me, honey, that's great, but nobody actually flies around on these jets. Well, no one we knew did. Remember that limited family budget? And while not many people had computers back then, there were books similar to Yellow Pages that advertised planes to rent. I became obsessed with these jets, and I wanted to know everything I could about them. I wanted to know how far they went, how fast they went, how many people could be accommodated on them, who manufactured them. I literally wrote out note cards and quizzed myself on jets every chance I could. I went to the library to get all the information because I didn't have a computer and Google really wasn't a thing. So remember I loved talking on the phone from when I was in high school? I thought, I have a phone, maybe I'll just start cold calling people. I must have called thousands of people and companies to tell them about my idea. And then, after a long time, I finally read an article about somebody who had a similar idea, and I reached out to them. And boom, we formed a company with 2 phones and the jet version of the Yellow Pages. A lot of people hung up on me back then, but I would call them right back and say, I'm so sorry, I think we got disconnected, and then tell them a joke real fast to try to make them like me. I remember thinking, maybe I need an edge. So I went to the building that housed HBO, and I dropped off my business card and some brownies to the travel department. Well, you might be thinking to yourself, how can brownies be an edge in the jet world? But guess what? It worked. Bingo, HBO Travel took my call. I believe everybody has some secret weapons. Some of mine were my interest in people and my deep empathy. Remember, I had been down a really dark alley. I think some of you might be able to relate. As Brené Brown would say, that experience made me vulnerable, but it allowed me to connect with people on a very deep level. It did make me a better person. The truth is, I love people, and I find everybody's different walk of life fascinating. I guess on all those phone calls, that came through because I was being authentic and I cared. And then, after all those phone calls, after all those months, after all that studying, and after all that rejection, I finally got my shot with Janet Jackson as my first client. I also landed Michael Crichton and Kevin Bacon. Woo. Yeah. Once I got 1 or 2 clients, the word about me spread and spread. I made it my practice to meet them on the plane with a small thank you and some homemade brownies, and they loved it. That's a good life lesson. Brownies go a long way. The rest is pretty much history. I took flight with my following of entrepreneurs and celebrities and all kinds of successful people. I did this for a while, and then, after a while, I was recruited away, and I was hired to help launch and grow an entrepreneurial startup company called Marquis Jet, which is exactly what I did, and we eventually became part of Warren Buffett-owned Netjets. Well, I served as a senior vice president, and I worked there for 10 years. Working for Warren Buffett gave me a great platform from which to launch my own company, which is exactly what I did in 2010. Today, I have a referral-only company, and I help my clients buy, sell, manage, and charter planes, among other things. We're known as one of the best resources in private aviation today. It's amazing. I get to follow my dreams, steal my own diamond, and help other people. It's been incredible. So I needed an extra bit of runway, but hey, I'm in good company. Colonel Sanders didn't start his first KFC franchise until age 62. And Henry Ford had 3 failed businesses before starting the Ford Motor Company at age 53. Along my life travels, I've done so many things, and I still experiment with them as well. I invented a lipstick container. I wrote a few television shows. I sold one to HBO. And despite being told, you're not acting material, even landed on a couple national television shows. Now that was fun. Most proudly, I got married to the man of my dreams at age 47, and I became a mother to the most amazing child at age 50. So what have I learned? I know not to ask permission. I trust my gut. I believe dreams can be prophetic. I know the brain conspires to help us. And I know that life is precious and a whole lot of fun. So as the title of one of my favorite books declares, you're born an original, don't die a copy. Let me leave you with this one final thought. If you have an idea, follow your dreams. Don't give up. People will say it's a bad idea until it isn't. So go dream big and steal your own diamond.